JSA issue 12, Geoff Johns and David Goyer writing with Buzz on art. This is the second part of this story. It's kind of the wrap up of the one side of it, bizarrely.
Yeah, this story's a lot more fragmented than I remember. In my head, I think the next issue was in between these.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of bounce back and forth between them.
That's it. When you get to the end of the issue, you realise why it's done this way, because they want this cliffhanger of like, oh god, what happened on the our ship, during our adventure. So there is a purpose behind it. And we, the end of last issue was seemingly the death of Sand, with Cobra killing him. Catalyst is like, oh man, this guy's crazy, I'm going to leave right now, which gave me a chuckle. And he starts blasting cities with his laser beams from satellites and, supervillain shenanigans. And then comes Mr. Terrific and Dr. Midnight. And we find out that in the moments before his death... Now, it's funny because I was ready to be a little annoyed at this with how it pulled the how Sand survived trick here. Because he says, it's a hard light hologram and the real Sand's safe meters away. And I was like, how did he know it was so dangerous though? But this is the beautiful thing about it that I still quite like, actually, is that he didn't know it wasn't that dangerous. That this thing happened at the last possible second. The real Sand did get paralyzed. He did get sort of frozen still by Catalyst. That still happened, because about halfway through the issue, I was like, where's Sand? If Sand was fine, then where the hell is he the whole time?
Why is he not popping back up to help?
And it turns out at the end, it's like, it's because he's obviously Midnight's tech or Terrific's tech made him invisible. And eventually they used Catalyst to turn him back, but he's still frozen there in place. I was like, okay, all right. So it was basically a last-ditch effort to save his life. It wasn't some weird... Because that was the problem I had with it at the first place. I was like, is this some weird part of the plan? Like, it was expecting?
It was extremely convoluted, if that was the plan.
Yeah, exactly. So I was happy that it was just some
very, very good improvisation, which... all the best superheroes are capable of.
Of course. So, that's all good. So, we have Mr. Terrific versus Cobra, and a pretty fun 2-page layout. That ends when he's realising that he's losing, because he's really cocky to begin with, Cobra. He's like, I've got X number of martial arts, you can never take me on. Terrific's like, I have 10 black belts. What are you talking about? But he cheats at the end, he in a true, snake-like fashion, he venoms him in the face. And actually, you know what, the colouring in the art here after this, it really looks like his face is melting off. Like the green flame coming from his face.
It does. It works once you realise it's just a gas moulding around his face. It doesn't seem wrong, but it just looks intense.
It looks vicious
for that first panel.
Yeah, it looks vicious. So
yeah,
good stuff. So we have basically, it was Airwave, the guy, the villain they had in the trap in the tube that was letting them use all this technology. Once the JSA let him out, he's more than happy to use his powers, because he just sort of beams up to the satellites and destroys them all. And Cobra's pissed about it. And he thinks he's getting away because he did, because obviously that venom trick did let him sneak away during the fight. So he's kind of making his escape for it. He's going to use hangar for a plane. And then in comes the hand, the giant hand of Atom Smasher.
It's huge.
It's huge, yeah. Because we see him when he grabs the plane, the full page spread, like he looks about 100 foot tall. Like he's gigantic.
The top of the trees are up to like his thighs.
Yeah,
he's huge.
Yeah, and obviously this is the big dramatic point of the issue, is that he wants to kill him, and he's telling Cobra what he did. Because Cobra's like, I don't know who you are. What are you talking about? I don't care about any of this. And he's squeezing the life out of him. And it's actually Starman who comes and talks to him about his brother dying. That he's able to kind of break through to Al to stop him from murdering. But I think my favourite part of all this, though, is that he's never been this big before. And it's something that the other characters are talking about. And even later on, they mention that this could have killed him. Like Atom Smasher has never been this size before. The amount of energy and power that it's taking for him to be this size must be absolutely costly on his body.
Feel like a big deal when he's that huge, and you've got Wildcat going, oh, whoa, he's really pushing his limits here, and Wildcat's a pretty on the cuff sort of guy. Mm-hmm. He tends to be limits, who cares? So that sort of attitude. So when he's kind of pointing this out and going, no, this is a big deal, you kind of understand that.
Yeah. So no, the moment has a lot of weight because of that. I think it's actually the detail that makes it feel like more than just a story trope. Because I mean, not that it does on its own, but it makes it feel like it has this more weight to it. The idea that he's potentially killing himself with his own power as he does this, it sells his anger even more than just saying that he's going to kill the villain. Because how often does a bad guy do something and a hero goes, "I'm going to kill you because I'm so mad." Like, that's a pretty common thing, and it's handled pretty well, in its own right. But I think the element of him like possibly destroying his own body with his powers really gives it that extra layer, that extra bit of oomph to make it really sing. So yeah, back inside they save Sand, and the island's going to blow. So nice little callback here actually to Starman being scared of the phantasm balls, as he would refer to them as, where it comes into panel and we don't see anything else yet, and he's just like, whoa, and you just see the speech bubble going off frame is just I think he's starting to like you, Jack. I enjoyed that. So they grab one of the Black Hawk planes and fly off before the island explodes. And interesting detail here, and they've got Cobra in custody because obviously he was completely crushed. Midnight's using his goggles here to he's got like several crushed ribs and like vertebrae and blah blah. He's just listing things that are crushed. He's lucky to be alive. But they find a plaque inside the plane which says it's property of the DEO, which is very suspicious. Like, why would the DEO here on Black Hawk Island? So we get a page of them basically yelling at Bones and like, wow, what's going on here? He's like, you didn't need to know, and lives got saved. There's nothing to be concerned about. And he's almost saved by the interruption here, where the time ship crashes into the roof, and the JSA run up and go, what's going on? What's happened to the boat? And out comes stumbling Metron, saying they've got 13 seconds before this multiverse is destroyed, so they have to go with him right now. That's not a lot of time to decide.
I liked the touch that it was 12.89 seconds. Because it was so specific.
Very specific. I was rounding for...
No, I appreciate that. Okay, you ran your head, but it's the specificity of it that actually makes the moment, I think.
Yes, so, next issue we're going to get presumably the story of what happened to the other team in their quest for Extant, so...
yeah, of course, and then we know that the course of these issues has to be undone at some point now because of how severe Cobra's damage with the satellites were. We see New York getting ripped to, multiple cities, I think it shows us, being decimated by these things. That it's clear now that, okay, we kind of have to undo this.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sells it in a way where you don't really get a good idea of how much the damage is, because they still kind of win at the end of the day, and then Bones says you saved a lot of lives, so you almost kind of read it like, oh, it's just typical comic book stuff where, okay, some damage happened, but it's enough to move on. Like, how many bad things have happened to Metropolis and Gotham over the years where they seem to survive, they seem to move on from it. Hell, Coast City got nuked. Like, it happens.
Yeah, and that was a pretty big deal, to be fair.
Yeah, it happens. But of course, the fact that the multiverse might die if they don't go and fix something does then open the door to the possibility that the events of the last couple issues might get played with a little bit. And I'll leave it there because I don't want to spoil what it does. But yeah, it's a fun issue. The action's really good. It flows really well. The dramatic sort of high point of Al and Cobra is really strong. I think, my one concern early on is like, okay, this excuse for Sand being alive is a bit shaky, but it kind of saved it by the end of the issue. So, but yeah, I have a lot to complain about.
Yeah, it all tied together nicely. And as much as, again, it's just my memory playing tricks with the format of the arc, it's unusual that it does just follow on so neatly for this point. Because I think the reason my memory trips up is because it would be so standard to just swap between the teams each issue, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the point being is the mystery of what happened to the other team. So this is why it's done it, and it's why it works, and it's why.
Absolutely, it was a compliment, and as I'm saying, it goes against the expected formula, and not just for the sake of it. It has a good reason to do it that's effective. So, yeah, kudos for that.
All right, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I'll just concur with that. 8.5. Little to fault in it, really.